Hello and welcome everyone to a special taped edition of episode 61 for Bettin and Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I, of course, am your host, Kyle Roscoe, coming with Charlie Freeman and Noah Maher. We even dragged Charlie away from class for this episode to bring to you guys a really good sequence over at Laurel Park covering two grade threes, four stakes, in the late pick five sequence. And on Risen Star weekend, this is a great alternative to bet. If you don't just want to play fairgrounds. As we all know, the more bets, the better on a single weekend. But guys, going to go over the peripherals real quick here, and then we'll get right into the handicapping for the special tape show. Again, if you don't watch on Monday nights, Horsin Around is at 8 p.m. Eastern every single Monday. If you are interested in being on the show, we have with co-hosts and fans. If you're interested, please email Howard at hkravitzhorse, KRAVETS at gmail.com, and he'll get back to you, and we'll try and schedule something for you guys to be on the show. But as you'll see scrolling on the bottom of the screen, as well as down in the description, please go down below the video player, hit subscribe, and hit the like button on this video. It's the best way to help out our channel, and it will push out this episode and all our episodes into the YouTube algorithm to hopefully grow the HHH Racing Podcast every single day. And if you guys do that, we greatly appreciate it. And the next show here on the HHH Racing Podcast channel is going to be Thursday, February 15th. If you guys are watching this on Monday night or Wednesday night, when it comes out, tomorrow night, Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, Howard, Pete, and Paul will cover the Risen Star Stakes late pick 5 for Fairgrounds, a fantastic card filled with stakes galore on Saturday, February 17th. Not one you guys are going to want to miss on the road to Kentucky Derby with, in my opinion, and Howard's opinion, if you've watched that episode already, the best Kentucky Derby prep so far. Not one you guys are going to want to miss. If you guys are more of an audio listener, please go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor, rate, review, and subscribe over there as well. The Power Picks, guys, still going as strong as ever. Total $2.20 all-time ROI and a total of 522 picks over the last 3 years. Just way in the green for this entire time that we've been doing the Power Picks. Average for the horse player, average horse player, it is $1.60, so 60 cents over the national average. Never a bad time to sign up for the Power Picks. Only for $15.99 a month, comes out to $4 a weekend, and you get two full cards, all full of pick 5 plays, spot plays, price plays, everything you need to be successful on a certain racing day. We got you covered. Patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast. The link is also in the description. And guys, we are very, very excited. This is the big one. We're very, very excited to announce that Bettin and Boozin and HHH Racing Podcast merch is coming very, very soon, with even an opportunity to get free merch, guys. That, like I said, I'll say it again, free merch could be on the cards if certain thing happens. Howard will have that coming up tomorrow. He'll have very specific instructions for you guys to try and get your hands on some free merch, with the possibility only if one thing happens, but you'll see what that exact thing is tomorrow, Thursday, February 15th. But we're gonna have hats, t-shirts, quarter zips, hoodies, and polos, maybe even Bettin and Boozin koozies, boys. That's also in the cards for that, and it's going to be really high quality stuff. Howard and I have been working on this for a few months now, trying to bring you guys the highest quality merchandise that we can and selling to you guys. I got the proofs today, and it looks really good. You guys are not going to want to miss out on the merch. We would really appreciate if you guys would grab some on your way to the Kentucky Derby. But guys, let's get right into it here. We're not going to waste too much more of anyone's time, as the late pick 5 at Laurel Park starts in race number 6 with the John B. Campbell Stakes, and I'll bring up the Equibase, right now. It's a field of 9 and we, of course, since recording this on Wednesday for Saturday's races, we do not have the morning lines, but it's going to be it might be the favorite, guys. Sheldon Russell, Brittany Russell for Rapoli homebred in Be Better, but Bob Marco for McGee has been very, very good as of late, and I'll bring up the picks right now. And you'll see two of us are going with the number 9 Bar Marco. That is me and Noah. Charlie's going a different way, and he is going with the Rapoli homebred, the number 3 Be Better, which means, Charlie, you, of course, get to go first and tell me and Noah why we are wrong. What'd you like most about the number 3 Be Better?
Yeah, so for me, I think it's very clear that this is a three-horse race, as we all kind of, in some way, shape, or form, have the 3, 9, and 7 on our tickets. I guess what I like about Be Better, honestly, is how ultra consistent this horse is. I mean, certainly, obviously, we've touched on many times before. More recently, when Brittany Russell's had horses at other tracks that we've covered, but how she sort of owns and dominates Laurel. When the Russells pair up together, it's always dangerous. And look, I understand that Be Better isn't the fastest horse out of the break and has lost to this lost to Double Crown a couple of times, who's also in this race. But for me, I just think the pace could set up enough because obviously the 1 is going to absolutely send, and then all the way on the outside the 9 is going to be sending as well. And there's some other decent stalkers in here that'll press forward. I think out of the closers, Be Better kind of has the best early speed. I know time form doesn't necessarily indicate that, but if you just look at the history, this horse has shown the ability to kind of sit closer up in that 3 to 4 length range rather than more in that 6 lengths or further where it's kind of risky. And I also just like the consistency. I mean, if you look at every single race this horse has run since May of 23, they've pretty much all been in the 90s, except for there was that one race, obviously, in the 80s that I think you kind of move on from. That was at Pimlico, maybe just not the track for this horse. But whenever Be Better runs at Laurel, the horse runs a great race. I like the connections. I understand because it's Rapoli, you probably won't get an amazing price, but for me, I just think the horse really fits here and runs well at this track and distance.
Yeah, Noah, I'll go to you next, and then you'll touch on the other two, and then I'll give my final thoughts, and we'll move on. But Be Better is definitely a horse that loves to come from the back, and you can see based on cold time form figures and these blue highlighted figures here that he can realistically do it in any type of pace scenario. But I'll tell you what, horse that's extremely fast, and I'm sure you saw it the same way as well, Bob Marco. These last 2 races, I mean, this horse has gotten in front by 18 lengths and 12 lengths at some points in these races. Just an absolute sender for Kieran McGee. I just complete pace play for me personally.
Yeah, obviously with Bob Marco, there's really only one way to go. The concern I have for kind of horses in the rest of the field, there's a lot of horses where they've kind of like popped a big number either last time or 2 back. There's not just really, a ton of consistency. There is some consistency with the 3 horses Charlie mentioned. But Bob Marco, yeah, he's just gonna, get to the lead. The thing I like is, the fields aren't as great, but he's not necessarily really coming back. He's still kind of striding out. There are a few concerns. It's his first time against Stakes Company. It's first time with Lasix. But obviously, Kyle, you've got him on top 2, so those weren't too concerning.
Well, it's not his first time on Lasix. You can see, or first time off Lasix is what you meant to say, and that definitely could be a concern for you Lasix players. It's not necessarily for me, guys. This is just a complete pace play. There are horses that are fast. Charlie mentioned the 1, as I'll go, Ain't the Beer Cold, which fantastic name for Kenneth Cox and Heavy in Toledo. But this horse, in a lot of his races, just an absolute quitter. At least that's the way it looks on paper. If he's going to have to contend with a horse, even coming from all the way outside with Bob Marco, it didn't necessarily concern me whatsoever. This horse, I mean, you can just see, granted, we can talk about the fields that this horse has been on the whole way through. We could talk about it for 10 minutes realistically, but it's just super, super fast. And if this horse gets clear, like this horse has been in the last, 6-7 races, if to me it looks that way, and this horse could be a definite play at any decent odds if the 3 is taking a lot of money. Of course, you have to respect that money and respect Rapoli, but this is a complete pace play for me, and Bob Marco looks to be that type of horse. And Noah, I'll let you. We all have the same top 3. Noah, touch on anything you want about Double Crown, and then Charlie, if you have anything, tag on with him, then we'll move on. But Double Crown for Ray Glinter and Barbosa as the jockey. This last race, this 2 back at Laurel is very good. Other than that, it hasn't really been too close recently, but still one to be kind of respected.
Yeah, if you look closely at Double Crown's PPs, the race last time in the Jennings and the race 3 back were kind of both in the slop, and those were a little bit of a dud. So I feel like if you kind of cross those 2 races out, I think they kind of dirty up the form a little bit. And I just think he's going to be a little more tactical. Obviously, you showed the time form, whereas I think Double Crown would be a little closer than the 3 horse might be.
Yep.
So if that's the case, and the 9 just doesn't have the gas to kind of take him the whole way, Double Crown could be one that's a little interesting.
I completely agree with you. And I'll bring up the time form one more time because I meant to bring it up at the beginning of the race. You'll see the 9 out in front, 1 just behind, the 3 Be Better all the way in the back, and the 9's not taking any pace pressure, at least on the projection. And you'll see the 7 in mid pack could get the jump on the 3 if it does end up going that way. But I'm going 9-7-3. Charlie's going 3-9-7. Noah's going 9-3-7. Guys, going to move over to race number 7 here, and this is the stake before we get to the graded stakes. It is the Nellie Moore Stakes for 1 mile to 16 for filly and mares 4-year-old and up. Draws a field of 7. Most likely morning line favorite, I would say, is going to be the number 7 Hybrid Eclipse for the Russells again. The number 1 Rosie's Halo for Heavy on Toledo and Saffy Joseph, and then probably your third choice will be the Maryland bred Charming Way for Jairo Rodriguez and Jamie Ness. Guys, going to switch over picks right now, and you'll see I am the one on an island this time, but of course I will not be going first. So Noah, I'll probably lean to you first here. You guys both have the same horse on top, so you guys can obviously discuss what you like most about the Russell horses, but we all know how good they can be at Laurel. And then you're with me in the same top 3. So what'd you like most first about Hybrid Eclipse?
Yeah, obviously Hybrid Eclipse is nothing too creative, and you know that the Russell connection is going to take money, obviously, here at Laurel. But just the last race, going up against Saddle Up Jesse, I mean, if Saddle Up Jesse was in the spot, I think she would be 1 to 5, 2 to 5, especially off the performance that we saw last weekend at Aqueduct. But I think in that race, she was chasing a pretty cold pace. I mean, they almost went 51 for the half mile. So I feel like there's quite a bit more pace in here. And I think she's just kind of going to get the setup in that kind of angle. Is that what you kind of thought, Charlie, or why did you have her on top?
Yeah, you kind of put it perfectly. I mean, again, we'll get to our best bets later, but that's exactly the angle I took. Is the horse has been running against better horses. I mean, again, you see Opus 42, Saddle Up Jesse. There's also a horse I believe that we're going to be covering, later this sequence, Intrepid Daydream. I mean, the reality is Hybrid Eclipse has been running against stronger than this field. And again, as you touched on, even though with running against stronger, it still hasn't managed to always get ideal paces to kind of run into. Again, as I touched on with the race before, again, you always have to respect the Russells here. I just think this sets up very nicely for Hybrid Eclipse. And quite frankly, I think the horses, I don't want to go as far as to say a tier above because I think this is a competitive field, but I do think for me, Hybrid Eclipse was the horse that clearly stuck out. And then I'll move into the 3 and I'll let you touch on it more, Kyle, because I know this is your top pick.
Yep.
But for me with Charming Way, I just, again, I'm assuming this is kind of what you thought as well. I just like the versatility of this horse. You can really see the horse, if the pace is slow enough, will just go to the lead and is comfortable doing so. And if it is a little more reasonable pace, then the horse can route and, sit a length or 2 off the lead and go by. So the one angle you could argue is with a decent pace to work with, maybe Charming Way can kind of get that first jump. Whereas obviously, as much as I like Hybrid Eclipse, this horse will be closer up and won't have as much work to do late. But was that also what you kind of thought, Kyle?
Yeah, it comes down to the thing. You guys, Noah mentioned that there might be a little more pace, maybe than last time, but I don't see that much pace really in here, guys. I mean, there's 2 horses really. It's the 5, as the names go away. # Lucky for Cruz and Sanchez Solomon, but realistically, the 3 Charming Way, and especially based on the time form projection, looks to sit just off this 5. And if Charming Way gets an exact trip like she did, 2 back, I mean, I just don't know if there's enough pace for other horses to get home in this spot. And obviously, Rosie's Halo, who I'll talk about in a minute, who I have in second, I just think that same type of thing. Horses that are going to be close next to a horse that doesn't necessarily like to quit that too much, but definitely more than other horses, that being the 5 # Lucky. You can see last time 6 furlongs, mile in the 16th. I mean, last one was at Delaware at a mile. And that was a good race. Don't get me wrong. And this race at Laurel was good as well. But, against a horse that's going to be pressing the entire way in Charming Way, I just think if this horse runs this 82 again, or even, this 71 is said here. This is a 100 time form, guys. We talk about discrepancies between the 2 pace figures, because I think I've developed, and obviously, we refine our handicapping every day. That's one thing that I never really took into account was other speed figures. I kind of took Bayer for what it was, but I love now comparing the 2 because The difference between time form and buyer is usually about 15 to 20 points. That's a very general statement, but 100 time form comparatively to a 71 buyer, that's a pretty big discrepancy. So time form rates this race much higher and much more on par of this with this 82 than this 71 buyer does. But I'm very interested in Charming Way, especially with the trip that she might get on Saturday. But Charlie, I'm moving to you. You'll get final thoughts here on anything we talked about. But you have the number 6, Frosty O'Toole in third here from Mike Deeney. Some good old Illinois connection as well with Mike Deeney. High Road Rodriguez, an Eclipse thoroughbred horse out of Frosted. I mean, these races are good. Might not, just the question is, will they be good enough to kind of step up in this field?
Yeah, my grandpa knows Mike D well. It's an interesting kind of, history this horse has been down. Obviously was trained by Deeney, gets trained by Pletcher then, and then goes back to Mike Deeney. So certainly an interesting routing. The horse has shown flashes. I know it hasn't always been incredible, and I know the efforts have been amazing, but the reality is this horse has been thrown in grade 3s, grade 1s. So there certainly has been enough background and competition. Last time out, I don't want to go as far as to say freaked, because the horse was a heavy favorite and expected to run well, and the figure isn't obviously incredible. But for me, I just liked kind of the different angle this horse kind of took with, being a lot closer to the pace. Granted, it was a slower pace, but nonetheless, instead of just kind of dealing with it being a slower pace and sitting back and basically essentially ruining the horse's own race, Gallardo was able to get the horse closer up and go by. And I also just like how the horse is working, to have a 47-2 last time out. The horse seems to be trending in the right direction. But I think Frosty O'Toole will win this race realistically, probably not. But I just think the horse is an interesting invader, and I didn't want to go, all chalk. So I just thought if you're looking for a price underneath, maybe this horse could take a step forward and surprise. I just feel like for the horse to be coming over from, Gulfstream, Tampa, and in New York, I think it's just kind of the wild card in this race where there isn't much you can really work with to compare this horse to others.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, this horse was obviously well man after that win at Tampa early last year. I mean, the horse won by 3.5 and an optional 75 claimer. Takes off of Deeney, puts with Pletcher, obviously Eclipse's top trainer, and runs in the Gazelle and the Acorn. So obviously, and that horse was 3.5 to 1 in the Gazelle. So this horse was really well meant for Eclipse thoroughbreds. They thought highly of this horse. Obviously, then nothing really panned out, and then switched back to Deeney. And that last race is indicative maybe this horse is again on a little bit of an upswing for her start of her 4-year-old campaign. But I like that pick, Charlie. Honestly, that could be one to take a little bit of a step forward in this spot rather than going with a lot of lower priced horses. I'm going 3-1-7. Charlie's going 7-3-6. Noah's going 7-3-1. Guys, going to switch over and start the graded stakes on the card at Laurel. This is the grade 3 Barbara Fritchie Stakes, going 7 furlongs on the dirt for fillies and mares, 4-year-old and up. Draws a full field of 9 in this spot. And I'll switch over the picks right now, but here's the Equibase. Morning line favorite, most likely going to be shared between the number 6, Intrepid Daydream, and the number 7, Bluefield. Both Safi Joseph invaders, one being ridden by Rodriguez, one being ridden by Toledo. And then a horse I don't think too far is going to be out of that running is Last Leaf for Eddie Keneally. But going to switch over the picks right now, guys, and we all have the same top 3 again. So we're either going to be really right, boys, or we're going to be really damn wrong. Obviously, we're going to hope really right. But Noah, you are the odd man out here. You are going with number 6, Intrepid Daydream. There are some, there's some things I like, some things I don't. I couldn't, I have to obviously respect this horse and the efforts that she has given. But what'd you like most about the number 6, Intrepid Daydream, and why are we going to be wrong with her?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. This was a very tepid pick in this spot. Intrepid Daydream. I just think she's kind of back where she likes it. Those 3 and 4 back here at Laurel, she beat those fields pretty good. And then when she tried to go to Gulfstream, maybe she had some excuses. Maybe she just isn't good enough. She gets back to Laurel. Interesting that Safi keeps, the training job here instead of going back to Campuano. I didn't really look into that. But I just feel like she definitely has to be respected. There is a little bit of pace in here, but I think she's classy enough to maybe sit off that. And I just kind of think that she's probably the horse to beat in here.
Yeah, Charlie, we'll go to you because you and I both have Bluefield on top, and I'll show the pace projection for kind of this type of spot. Bluefield, who's coming off of a really good effort in the inside info, now gets a little bit of class relief, kind of going back to not necessarily like the state bred company that she's ran in before. And she is 8 now, I will say that, but still putting in really good efforts. And that inside info, I think, is sneaky good behind Olivia Darling, who came out of the 10 hole and who pats on my back. I picked her on top on the show when we covered that. That was Holy Bull Day for Gulfstream. And she is coming back a little quick, but I mean, she's done it before and ran an 89. And I think, there's nothing wrong with an 89 in this spot, personally.
No, not at all. And I mean, for me, look, this was a horse I was on both times that Bluefield has run a Gulfstream. I think we had covered, I know at least one, maybe even both of them. I think we might have covered both of them. But honestly, I just thought the 6 furlongs, that was my one worry two back at Gulfstream, was would it just be a little too short? And, going back to 7 furlongs where it seems like Bluefield loves to run, and ran a really, really solid effort at not like a crazy price, because the horse was bet down, I think, from like 10 or 8 to 1 to 6 to 1, but still ran on a very respectable second. I mean, beat Mary Quite Contrary, was a great horse. So beat some very solid horses. Obviously, Pratt being aboard last time out also meant that, the horse, even though, as you mentioned, is 8 years old, clearly to get Pratt at that age means the horse still has something for sure left in the tank. So I think she's still very dangerous. And I just love the pace setup, honestly. I like that they're sticking with the 7 furlongs, because I think that's the distance this horse has always been meant to be at. I think 6 is just too sharp unless the field really is that weak, or if it's a crazy hot pace. I don't think the pace has to be as crazy, but I think it naturally will be. I mean, you look to the outside, it's 2 horses that are more forwardly placed. Just to the inside, and type of Daydream's going to be forwardly placed. There's more speed to the inside. I just think there's a lot of horses that are going to want to go. And I think from a trip standpoint and a distance perspective, I just think this sets up perfectly for Bluefield. I think really this is the great spot. Horse is still training well. Safi, as you mentioned, keeping both horses, I think honestly more so just, speaks volumes that he still believes and wants to have control of these horses and has a specific plan. I think this was, again, also purposefully putting them both back in Laurel. Maybe he just thinks that Gulfstream just isn't where these horses are meant to be right now.
I just think personally for Bluefield, I think Safi kind of wants to give her a little bit more class relief than she's given. Like I said, Safi still means this horse really well, considering that she ran in the inside info last time out. But coming back to type of this not listed stake, but low graded stake at Laurel, I think this will fit Bluefield really well on a track with a longer stretch that favors closers at a distance that she really likes. She's 3 for 7 at Laurel. I just think this is, if at all spots, I think this is a really good spot for Bluefield to be in, and gets Rodriguez aboard, who's obviously very, very good at Laurel Park. Noah, I'll let you touch on the last horse, Last Leaf for Keneally. And the thing that I mentioned last race about the Savvy horse, Rosie's Halo, is that horse is also in at Gulfstream Park, so there is a cross entry there, so keep in mind for that. But neither Intrepid Daydream or Bluefield are cross entered, which leads me to believe that they might both be in on Saturday at Laurel, but obviously check your changes and scratches before making your picks for Saturday. But Last Leaf, Keneally Cruz ran really well twice at Turfway. Looks to come back to the dirt, where she definitely has some back form, Noah.
Yeah, that's definitely what I was keying in on. I was surprised that both of you guys had her in the top 3. This was kind of primarily underneath play for me. Obviously, she hasn't gotten her picture taken in over a year and a half or more. But you go to some of these races, in the fall of this past year. You look at the 6 furlong race at Churchill, running 4 lengths behind Wicked Halo, and then running the TCA, which Kyle and I, we were at that day. You're running against Uguri and Wicked Halo again. And then even the Kentucky Downs race, even though that was on turf, that was a really nice race with Ouvre, who I think came back and won at Keeneland. So I just think, the back class that you pointed at, and even earlier in her career when she was a late 3-year-old, early 4-year-old, she ran in some really nice races. And it's just something about this Turfway track. She's been there the last 2 times. It just seems like it's a really tiring track. So whenever horses kind of run there and then kind of come back, they seem to be really fit. The only one concern I did have, Kyle, you kind of have access to this and I don't, is what Keneally's kind of stats are when he ships to Laurel. I'm not really I don't really play Laurel on the daily. So I'd be interested
1
to
for
see.
2 is her answer. Winning with Safine, so he doesn't really ship too often, which I think is kind of a positive in that regard, where that means Eddie Keneally really thinks that Last Leaf has a chance. It's kind of a ship to win scenario for something like this, where Eddie Keneally really isn't, twice in the last 5 years he's shipped a Laurel and he's 1-for-2. He really, I think sending her out here, get, a little bit of like that graded stakes company trying to get her a little bit of black type per se, as you would say in the type of the breeding aspect. But I just think if there's one race that Keneally thinks she can run well in to get that graded stakes win, it is in this race with Last Leaf. So no, I'm completely in agreement with you. I think this horse is really interesting, at least underneath. I'm going 7-1-6. Charlie's going 7-6-1. Noah's going 6-1-7. Guys, going to switch to the co-feature here on the card. It's the General George, another grade 3, 4-year-olds and up for the males, going 7 furlongs, basically just the male version of the Barbara Fritchie. Draws a field of 7, and some really, really good East Coast horses are drawn into this spot. You have Cohen for Barbosa and Ginter, Post Time for the Russells, and Nimitz Class, who's coming out of the Pegasus World Cup for the for newly trainer George Weaver and Heavy on Toledo. Greeley and Ben, Grandpa's back in this spot as well. Very, very good East Coast horses are in this spot at Laurel, guys, and I'll bring up the picks right now, and I'll switch over. We are all going with the number 3 Post Time, and I'll start this one, guys. This is my biggest opinion on the card. I think, as I'll switch to the PPs right now, the reason why this is my strongest opinion, guys, is obviously the Russells are good. Obviously, this horse will not be a massive price, but I think Nimitz Class coming off of the Pegasus World Cup is going to take a lot of money, where this horse doesn't necessarily, not deserving it is definitely not the way I want to put this, but you'll look at this horse's back class, guys. Mile and eighth, mile and eighth, mile 70, mile and eighth. This horse likes to go longer. And obviously these numbers, these buyers and these time forms are very, very good, but they're all at longer. This horse hasn't been at 7 furlongs in a year and a half almost, where this horse was behind in a fast pace and just could not get the job done. It's just why Bruce Kravitz at that time, no relation, we touch on that every time, no relation to the boss man, but George Weaver thinks this horse can run at 7 furlongs. I just think this horse can take a lot of money, where maybe this horse is not better at 7 furlongs. I'll bring up the pace scenario right here. You'll see the 1 and the 2 both with very, very fast early time form rating. The 1 is a 117. The 2 also having a 117, so they're exactly the same. You'll see the number 3 Post Time is going to be a little bit farther back. I'm not necessarily sure that he'll be that far back, as I'll switch over to his PPs right now. But again, there looks to be a pretty big pace duel up in front, which would leave time for the number 3 Post Time to get up there. This last race, guys, I think I loved Post Time in that rate and that Laurel card that we covered that was canceled, unfortunately, but came back to run an absolutely monster race for the Russells. Granted, at 60 cents to the dollar. I think this horse is just very, very good. Obviously, this Perryville was the race I keyed in on at that time. Of course, losing to Raise Kane and Dr. Venkman. Dr. Venkman out of West Coast Bias's field out there on the West Coast, but Raise Kane, obviously, the Bettin and Boozin Indiana show, big winner on that card. Or no, sorry, runner-up, verifying one that day. But either way, very good Perryville. Obviously ran amazing in the Jennings Stakes. This is kind of like a similar spot to me in this race as was the Jennings. This horse has still been working like a monster. Looks to sit a really nice setup, and I'm hoping – the reason why, again, like I said, I'm hoping that the number 4 Nimitz Class off that type of, coming back from the Pegasus, people see that. Obviously, this horse is 5 for 5 at Laurel, but I'm just hoping people see this. Obviously, didn't run very well, and then they bet money on him coming back, and that's why I'm really landing on Post Time. Noah and Charlie, I'll let you talk next. Noah finish up, then we'll move on to the last race, which is certainly a doozy. Charlie, anything you want to add with Post Time? And then you threw Nimitz Class out entirely and are going with 2 other horses that I don't have anywhere and Noah has in third. So anything you want to add with Post Time, and then feel free to move on with your other 2.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for me, what it just comes down to is I feel like this is a race where Post Time and Nimitz Class are going to take all the money, and you kind of just have to take a stand on one or the other. And I understand that based off what time form is saying, that Nimitz class should be the one who's more forwardly placed, that post time's going to have more work to do. But what you touched on is exactly what stood out to me. Post time has, I mean, number one, the horse is an unbelievable winner. I mean, the horse is 5 for 5 at Laurel, 6 for 7 for the career. So the Russells know exactly what they're doing with this horse. But as you touched on, even though the horse is more of a closing type, has shown the ability to kind of at times sit closer if needed. And again, has run plenty of races at this 6 and 7 furlong distance. Whereas Nimitz class, who, yeah, in theory should be more forwardly placed, hasn't run since November of 22 at this distance. And I feel like once a horse kind of gets used to running at that, mile and longer pace, the speed that this horse is going to have to adjust to won't be the same. So I wouldn't be surprised if Nimitz class is around as far back as post time. And again, I think post time will be used to having to close at this distance and Nimitz class won't. So for me, for a horse that's going to get a ton of money taken down, I would, and isn't, to me, any sort of world beater, but it'll probably bet as if the horse is. I'd rather take the connections that have done it before here and the horse that has done it at this distance than take a chance on a horse that I'm going to get no value with. Now, moving on, I think 7's 11 is interesting. I understand the horse lost by 6 lengths to post time. So you're thinking, why the heck do you have this horse anywhere? Is it just because you think post time's that much better that it gives an excuse? For me, this horse prefers to go on that 7 and 6 furlong distance, is 6 for 12 at Laurel and is in the money 9 out of 12 times. I think this is just a horse for course angle. And I like the setup. You showed the time form earlier, and I think this sets up perfectly for the 5, where this horse will be sitting just off those speed. And again, as much as I believe in post time, there is a scenario where post time can't get there, where, again, for me, Nimitz class having to adjust to the shorter distance might not get there. And 7's 11 at a price could end up taking advantage to get the jump. And then I'll let Noah touch on it more. But for Graham Screenley, Ben, I mean, look, this horse just loves to run its race. The reality is, 34 out of 44 starts, this horse is in the money. I just didn't want to leave the horse off my ticket because I feel like Greeley and Ben will just find a way to somehow finish top 3.
I mean, this is your classic, a fast-paced clunk up horse for third and at a bigger price. I just, maybe it's finally time to put Greeley and Bren out to the farm and let him be a horse for a little while. I think that's just me personally, but no, I'll let you touch on here. Obviously, you have Greeley and Ben in third as well. Anything you want to touch on before we move on? Even with the 4 who we haven't touched on yet. No, it's Nimitz class. Excuse me. I thought that was a horse.
No, I'll talk about Nimitz class because I feel like I would definitely agree with you if it was a case where the horse was kind of switching back to Boss Man's uncle. But just what George Weaver can do, I just feel like just the fact that he stays with George Weaver, it's just a little dangerous in my opinion. Yeah. And the horse is very talented and he's run some decent numbers. So I've got him in the mix. And then I've got Patrick Kuenzel in third, who I think you actually had on top when we covered that race.
I did. I did.
Third at Laurel.
I'll give it that. I did.
Just a really nice horse. I mean, they bought this horse for $80K and he's almost up to 7 figures in earnings now. So just an awesome horse, an awesome story. And he's not done. I mean, he likes to clunk up. So maybe he can get up in this race.
Shout out Patrick for showing up on the podcast.
I was going to say, Patrick showed up.
That's
so bad, dude. Rip fanatic. But anyway, look, Gramps is definitely your type of clunk up horse for third, as I mentioned, but underneath strictly for me if I were to play with that horse. But I'm going 3-1-4. Charlie's going 3-5-6. Noah's also going 3-4-6. Guys, this last race, man, Maiden claiming 12,500 to 10,000, mile and a 16th. Fillies and mares, 4 and 5 years old. What a condition. 7 horses draw into this spot. Dude, I don't know. Morning line favorite. I mean, you can take a guess. Maybe the number 3, Tyson Tyrant, I would assume is how you say that. It's not Titty and Tyrant. Don't even say that. Or maybe it is. I don't know, honestly. Voodoo's Princess, is that a South Carolina brand?
Carolina, maybe.
That's wild if that's the case. But I'll switch over the picks right now, guys. We'll talk about this for a little bit and then we'll move on. We all have different horses on top as this race is completely wide open, as I would think. Charlie, I'll let you go first. Touch on your top 3 and then throw it to Noah, and then I'll give my final 2 cents and we'll move on. But you have the number 6, Voodoo Priestess on top, and I'll go right to her. What did you like most about Voodoo Princess?
Yeah, like is a very strong and generous word. Honestly, I mean, look, the horse is 0 for 10. The horse is only in for 10,000 claiming. I mean, maybe the horse is finally destined to get it done. I mean, for me, normally these would be the horses I stay off of. Is when a horse is at that many tries, you like to try to find a fresh face. But honestly, at the same time, it's one of the only horses that has shown any sort of, life and interest in doing something, and is one of the only horses that's ever passed anybody. Now, at that, barely it has passed anyone, but the fact that the horse has passed a horse before instantly gives the horse a leg up on some of these other horses. Wouldn't be my strongest pick, but I also will say I feel very confident that this horse will finish the line, since the horse is 10 for 10 and finishing the race, which, again, for me is very impressive. But yeah, on a more serious note, I mean, look, I understand you see the horse lost by 24, two back in second, but lost by 10. I don't think that'd be exactly what you'd want to see, but maybe the horse can do it. I mean, for me, this would be a stay away. If you're playing the late Pick5, it's an all button, and you kind of hope a price gets in. And then for my other two picks, I said 3 and 4. I mean, yeah, if the 3 is the favorite, man, I wouldn't want to touch any sort of short price. But again, at least the figures are consistent. You're probably going to get a high 30, low 40, which again, in this field, that's it's a generational effort. So you have to take what you can get. And then, yeah, with the 4 horse, I'm not really sure what the thought process was in putting the 4th third. I think I was just kind of down to 4 and 5, and that 39 is big in this field, so that's why I like the 4 and 3rd. I mean, I'm curious, Kyle. I'm sure you have some stronger opinions than Noah and I. This is kind of like your wheelhouse, with me a little bit too with the Arlington background, but you have 3, 6, 2. So we have the top 2 on similarities. So maybe you see something even stronger than I do on these 2.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go with it because the thing about, Can-Am was a horse I thought throwing in there, granted with a bug on top, but Machado's won 5 of 11 in here, 7 for 11 in the money. So that's at least got to be respected. And you said the figures. This also has also been working, straight up to this race, which in these types of races, I respect a lot more, because you'll see a lot of weird works with these kind of cheaper horses. This horse is also coming back in a week, which is also something to keep in mind for Machado. But obviously, winning at 50% on this meet is nothing short of spectacular. I went with the number 3 Tyson Tyrant, and I could be wrong, guys. This is the only horse in the entire field that likes to pass. So the fact, if they go quick up front, which is the horse that I want, and the number 3 Tyson Tyrant is the horse that I want. Like this, I mean, the work tab is super slow. These look all like maintenance workouts to me. Nothing like they're trying to go super fast in the mornings. Obviously, this horse is cheap, but like I said, only horse that can pass in a field of a lot of horses that are going to look to try and that don't like to pass at all. So I like the number 3 Tyson Tyrant for that point. And Noah, we have the same horse. And you have the horse on top. I have the horse in 3rd. Mucho Macho Myrtle.
Great name.
Myrtle? Because that's not, yeah.
Triple M.
Maybe.
We're just gonna call it Triple M.
No,
right, go ahead.
I'll put myself on blast if I get it wrong. It's not that big of a deal. Mansilla is obviously a pretty decent train out there. You get Tori Alba on top, another bug, but I mean, no, I'll throw it to you. Drop in class, which is the angle you can kind of go with at the 3 as well. What'd you hone in on here, and then we'll move on to best bets.
I mean, in a race this bad, you kind of have to look for something, and maybe this horse has a little upside. I mean, that's kind of what I was looking at. I mean, in her first 2 races, the comments literally just say outrun both times. So obviously she didn't know running at all. But you get Tori Alba, who's a decent apprentice, and he gets a weight break, which actually might, be worth something in a field like this. And then I've got the 3 in second, who you already touched on, who's kind of given the best kind of numbers that we've seen so far. And then I've got the 4 in second, who Charlie had as well, for a guy who's done really well at the meet. This horse also has Tori Alba on, which last time I checked, I don't think that's possible. But these horses might be running slow enough to where Tori Alba is able to jump off of this horse and go onto the other. Something like that.
Hey, if somebody gets no rider, that horse instantly becomes the favorite, by the way.
All right. I'm putting the kibosh on this one. There's too loose out here. I got to rein back in everybody. Obviously, Tori Alba will not be riding both. I sure hope not. Obviously, keep an eye out for scratches and changes to see who gets on one of these horses. But there's a lot of, you can make, like I said, you got to go a lot of different ways. You got to get creative in races like this. Like I said, if you told me you were going to go 5 out of the 7 or something like that, I wouldn't doubt you by any means. Like, I wouldn't, poo-poo you by any means. This race, you gotta have to get creative in spots like this and really dig deep into, who's gonna win, or you try and single the favorite home and move on. But guys, I'm going 6-3-6-2. Charlie's going 6-3-4. Noah's going 2-3-4. Guys, gonna move on to best bets here, and then we'll end the show here. Hopefully, get a nice quick 45 minutes in for you guys. Noah, I'll start off with you here. You're going two different exactas. You're going race number 6, which we talked about, 9/3.7. That is, of course, as my DR fails to load. That's
Bob Marco.
Bob Marco, thank you.
Bob Marco with Be Better and Double Crown.
Yep, that's correct. Thank you. I appreciate it. I don't know why my stuff wasn't loading. And then race number 8, you're going ice cold exacta. That is Intrepid Daydream over the number 1 Last Leaf. Noah, talk about your best bets.
Yeah, so in the 6th race, I've got the 9 on top, who Kyle has as well, who's just very one dimensional and is just going to go to the lead and maybe he can hold on. I'm going to try and use the 7 as well because I think the 7's a little interesting. I respect the 3, but obviously the Russells are going to take money. So anytime you can get a horse that's going to take money out of an exacta or a try, that's going to be exponentially better for your value. And then moving on to the 8th race, I had Intrepid Daydream on top. I know you guys like Bluefield a little bit. I was a little bit against her. So again, trying to get a low price horse out of the exacta. And we were all interested in the 1 Last Leaf, who's running some decent races and doesn't really like to get her picture taken, but definitely a horse that has to be respected underneath. So those were my 2 best bets.
Yep. I love it. I love the stands that we're taking, trying to create a little bit of value with what looks like some lower priced winners on this card. So no, good luck with your best bets. Charlie, I'll go to you next. You're going race number 7, double 6 over with 6-7, and in race number 9, an exacta 3 over 5-6. Charlie, talk about your best bets.
Yeah, so, in race 7, Hybrid Eclipse, again, as we touched on throughout the sequence, I've been all over the Russells. And, again, this horse ran against Saddle Up Jesse's just been running against much tougher competition. I think this, I don't even want to call it Clash League because, it's still a stakes race. But nonetheless, this easier level of competition, I think, suits this horse really well. And then as much as I like Bluefield, I just don't want to risk because I do think, not that Intrepid Daydream is the speed of the speed, but I think Intrepid Daydream, as Noah touched on earlier, could, sit just off. But out of all the horses that will be forwardly placed, by far is the classiest and has, the most background so that this horse can kind of stay up. So I didn't want to, put a Stone Cold, even though I'm known for doing those Stone Cold doubles of just Bluefield. So I decided to do both of those. And then going into race 9 for my exacta, I'm doing Post Time over 7s 11 and Greeley and Ben. I mean, Greeley and Ben always kind of finds ways. We touched on the old head, the Patrick Kuenzel horse, Gramps always finds a way to kind of, stay in the mix. So I wanted to keep that horse. And then I said that, 7s 11 again, these are 2 horses you'll get good prices on, should be in and around there. And then Kyle, I know you gave a really extended look into Post Time. The horse, obviously ultra talented, has ran against Race Kane, has been running against all these different horses, is working well. I know you kind of told me off air that this horse kind of in the replays you watched almost looked a little Mahomey to you. So I just feel like for that kind of ability, this horse should be ultra talented. And I'm putting that one on top of my exactas to get some value out.
And respectfully, I didn't say shit. That's coming straight out of your beautiful Ohio State education right there. Is what that's coming out of. That ain't coming out of me. That's for damn sure. But anyway, Charlie, good luck with your best bets. Yeah, trying to throw me under that. That shit ain't flying.
Look at that. Look at that. He put a win bet on him.
See, yeah, why don't you do it? Besides that, tell us why.
I'm definitely going to tell. I already told you why. I don't need to tell you again. Anyway, yeah, you give the Tony Romo treatment to Mahomes while you're at it. Anyway, I'm going with 2 other horses in that double. I went with the number 1 Rosie's Halo. That is the horse that is cross-entered at Gulfstream Park, so keep an eye on that. And follow me on Twitter at AP Roscoe K for the full, if I have to revamp that with maybe a horse including Bluefield or with another horse in that race. I'm just going against the number 7 Hybrids Eclipse, who can, of course, win, but trying to get a little bit more value with throwing out the favorite there. And, of course, adding in my top pick, Charming Way. With Bluefield, like I said, there's a lot of different ways you can go. So hopefully if the 1 does stay in, that will be the bet. But if it doesn't, of course, follow me on Twitter for the final version of that. And in race number 9, a win on number 3 Post Time, guys. I'm hoping for somewhere around 2-1. I'm not sure we'll get it. I'm hoping Nimitz Class takes a lot of money and that I can get Post Time at a decent price for the race. That's going to incur a lot of good value there, which could be my best win bet on the card for Saturday. But guys, that is going to wrap up episode 61 of Bettin and Boozin, covering a pretty good sequence at Laurel for Saturday, February 17th, with 2 grade 3s on the card. But for my co-hosts, Charlie Freeman and Noah Maher, this has been your host, Kyle Roscoe, in episode number 61 of Bettin and Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. And of course, until next time, crush those bets, win those photos, and stay safe, everyone. We'll see you in the next episode. Have a good night.